everyone, and welcome to your favorite podcast, Let's Talk About Sex. In today's episode, Mar and I will discuss safe sexual practices and their treatments.
Hello, Gabby. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to discuss these topics and their importance among college students. But first, let's define what sexually transmitted diseases are, because I'm sure most people have heard this term before but may not be aware of its specific definition, so please go ahead.
Sure, Mar. So, sexually transmitted diseases, or STDs, refer to a recognizable disease state that has developed from an infection. So, in other words, STDs are infections that can be spread from one person to another through sexual contact.
Thank you, Gabby. Now that we have cleared our minds, let's start to talk about safe sexual practices. Did you know that the majority of people do not have knowledge of safe sexual practices?
Yes, in fact, if people were to be aware of safe sexual practices, this would not be a global concern.
That's right. According to a study performed by Interbug in 2020, being aware of the importance of practicing safe sex can reduce not only the risk of contracting STDs, but also unplanned pregnancies, which is another huge concern.
It surely is, but would you say it affects all populations?
Not necessarily. It's more common among teenagers and college students.
Really? But what does this happen?
Well, it happens because students who don't have sexual experiences are more prone or more likely to be influenced by external factors such as social pressure from friends or society in general.
Is it really? I think this is not okay. Everyone should be respectful and positive towards each other's sexual relations.
Yeah, totally agree.
And talking about safe sexual practices, which ones would you recommend?
I love you asked. We should start by being sexually educated from a young age. And after starting your sexual life, it is important to make a previous assessment of the risk that having sexual relations can lead to.
Definitely.
Also, there's an approach called the 5 Ps. Have you heard of it?
Not really, but please tell me more.
Basically, it's an approach everyone should do with their sexual partner to obtain their sexual history. And based on it, you can decide whether or not to have sex with this person. The meaning of the 5 Ps is partners, practices, protection from STDs, past history of STDs, and pregnancy intention. An example for the partner section will be asking your partner, are you currently having sex of any kind? And if they do, what is their gender? For practices, what kind of sexual contact do they have? For protection, what protection methods do they use? For past history, have you ever been tested or diagnosed? And finally, for pregnancy intention, whether they would like to have children or not.
That really sounds amazing. I think everyone should put the 5 Ps method into practice. But apart from that, you mentioned something about the protection methods. Could you please elaborate on it?
Of course. In general, it's always good to use condoms. But there are other methods, such as the typical IUD for women or vasectomy for men.
Wow, that's really good to know.
Now, let's talk about the recommendations and treatments in case of contracting an STD.
Sure. Basically, it is important to note that the recommendations are mostly aimed towards sexually active teenagers and young adults. Then, knowing this, for chlamydia and gonorrhea infections, it is recommended for women over 25 years to be screened on an annual basis. And for human papillomavirus, also known as HPV, which actually is the fourth most common cancer in women worldwide, it is recommended the same annual screening for women of 25 plus.
Wait, but if it is one of the most common cancers in the world, why aren't women making routine screens at a younger age?
That's a great question. So, according to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, it is recommended that women be screened starting at age 21. However, invasive cervical cancer in women has decreased due to vaccination.
I guess that sounds like good news. But what about the most popular STD, HIV?
So, for that one, it should be based on the patient's sexual behaviors and the local disease prevalence.
Oh, interesting. Those recommendations are great to hear for all the people listening. However, I know that according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, it is estimated that 1 in 5 Americans has an STD. So, is there any cure for the people who sadly have contracted an STD?
So, first of all, we must know there is a difference between a curable and a treatable STD. The currently curable STDs include syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, and trichomoniasis, which are cured with single-dose regimens of antibiotics, whereas incurable STDs include hepatitis B, herpes, and HPV.
No way, that's sad news.
They truly are. But still, there is effective treatment for several STDs. For example, herpes and HIV's most effective medications are antivirals that help modulate the course of the disease, whereas hepatitis B's can help fight the virus and slow damage to the liver.
Thank you for sharing all this useful information. I think the people listening will really appreciate it and hopefully they will apply it in their lives.
Thanks to you too. It certainly is useful to know all this. In the next chapter of our podcast, let's talk about sex. Our collaborators Jennifer Martinez and Elisa Huerta will talk about the level of awareness in regards to sexual education as well as the amount of clinics accessible.
Do not miss that episode, it will be really interesting. Thank you for listening.